Hello, dear students, and welcome to Panoptic Current Affairs. This is a weekly series that we have started on Civil's Catalyst, जिसमें हम पिछले हफ्ते के important editorials, articles और news bits को cover करते हैं. I personally cover editorials articles from both the Hindu and Indian Express, along with explained and text and context pages. My colleague Altaf sir is discussing important current events from the other pages. So this is a comprehensive series that we are coming up with on every Sunday. Today we are going to discuss the editorials and articles from both these newspapers from the 24th of November to 30th of November. There are a lot of important issues that are to be covered today. We're going to take up all of the important articles. Before we go ahead and dive in, you can download the notes from here, my Telegram channel, Civil's Catalyst. These are available. These are extremely lean, concise and precise notes because the entire aim of the exercise is कि आपका current affairs का काम जो है वो बहुत आसान हो जाए and in less time you must be able to get more value out of it. So that's the whole idea and hence we have basically started this series. All right. चलिए, so हम शुरू करते हैं हमारा discussion. The first issue that we are going to discuss today is a crucial one. Supreme Court of India has given a landmark judgment in context of the words socialist and secular in our constitution. Okay, in that context, there has been a flurry of articles. We have taken points from almost all the articles, but primarily there are two articles that we are focusing upon. First is timely reiteration from the Hindu, and secondly, socialist secular in preamble from the Indian Express. Okay, wherever possible, when there are multiple articles, guys, and there is some value that each one is adding, we try to combine also at times, and when there is difference in perspective, तो हम उसको अलग भी रखते हैं. We want to avoid repetition, and that is why we are trying to do it in this manner. Okay, I hope you appreciate that. चलिए, तो अब बात करना हम स्टार्ट करते हैं रिगार्डिंग दिस इंपॉर्टेंट इशू. तो हुआ क्या है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया ने एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट जजमेंट दिया है. क्या है जजमेंट सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया का? सेक्युलरिज्म और सोशलिज्म, ये जो वर्ड्स इंट्रोड्यूस हुए थे हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के प्रीएम्बल में बाय द 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट इन 1976. Okay, there was one more word, that is integrity, but that was not challenged over here. So in context of both these words, Supreme Court has decisively held that the insertion is valid. There is no issue or problem with this insertion. Supreme Court has given a landmark judgment. Division bench headed by Justice Khanna himself, CJI of India, इन्होंने ये judgment दिया है. तो ये आने वाले वक्त के लिए एक बहुत ही important landmark judgment रहेगा. Background क्या है इसका? Why this entire issue has cropped up several times? दोस्तों, कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ने एक बहुत ही डिटेल्ड और मेटिकुलस काम किया था ओवर सेवरल मंथ्स एंड देन ड्राफ्टेड लॉन्गेस्ट रिटन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. और इसका जो प्रीएम्बल है, उस प्रीएम्बल में ये वर्ड्स ओरिजिनली नहीं थे. दे वर नॉट इंक्लूडेड ओवर देयर. दे वर इंट्रोड्यूस्ड लेटर इन 1976. So this begs the question whether the Constituent Assembly in the first place had specifically or consciously omitted or left out these words. These are not just words, these are, deep ideas, they are ethos, they are values. And in that context, it is important to see what exactly was the idea of Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly की मंशा, उनका इरादा क्या था, इसको समझना यहाँ पर में जरूरी हो जाता है. So let us dive in and see over there. Rationale of Constituent Assembly on secularism. अब देखिए, सबसे पहले हम सेक्युलरिज्म की बात करते हैं, फिर सोशलिज्म की अलग से करेंगे. कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर में कई सारे ऐसे प्रोविजंस रखे हैं जो कि सेक्युलरिज्म के साथ में कंसिस्टेंट है, या आप ये कह सकते हैं कि सेक्युलर ईथोस को वो दर्शाते हैं हमारे संविधान का. जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल इक्वालिटी बिफोर लॉ एंड इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ, जो कि हमारे फंडामेंटल राइट्स में एनश्राइंड है. ये हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के फाउंडिंग फादर्स ने इसको इंट्रोड्यूस किया था. साथ ही they did not stop over there, they also extended right to profess, practice and propagate any religion, plus freedom of belief and conscience. These were introduced in the fundamental rights itself. What does this show? This clearly shows that secularism is inherent in the Constitution of India. These are values or ethos that actually underpin the constitution of the country, and hence there is no reason to believe that the Constituent Assembly did not, in a way, espouse this thought or idea. But there is, again, the question remains regarding the second aspect, which is socialism. Two words were introduced, socialist and secular. So what about socialism then? Here, there was a difference. Dr. Ambedkar had opined, Dr. Ambedkar का ये opinion था, उनका ये मत था, that Constituent Assembly should not tie down future generations, should not tie down future generations to one single form of economy. दोस्तों, फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल के दौरान में जैसे ही रशिया में क्रांति हो जाती है 1917 में, रशियन रेवोल्यूशन बेस्ड ऑन आइडियाज ऑफ कार्ल मार्क्स टू बिगिन विद, एंड देन आल्सो लेनिन्स ओन थॉट इंक्लूडेड इन दैट. जब रशियन रेवोल्यूशन हो जाता है, उसके बाद सोशलिज्म का डंका पूरे दुनिया में चल पड़ता है. इन इंडियन सबकॉन्टिनेंट, इन द फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल आल्सो वी सी दैट द socialist ideas become immensely popular, right? And therefore, it was the most dominant strain at that particular time. But very wisely, Dr. Ambedkar at that time said that even if this idea might be very strongly prevalent, there are other opinions, views, models also. So we cannot, in a way, limit the future generations to one particular model only. That was his idea. After this, several years later, 42nd Amendment was passed by Mrs. Gandhi's government in the backdrop of emergency. Emergency comes about in 1975, and then few months down the line, the 42nd Amendment Act was passed, and this act is also referred to as mini constitution because of the numerous changes that it brought about in the Constitution. And one of the change, or the one of the contentious change, was introduction of three words: socialist, secular and integrity in the Constitution. इस चीज को लेकर के there have been a clutch of petitions that had reached the Supreme Court of India. These petitioners had certain objections on introduction of these words. What were the objections that these people had raised? First and foremost is that these words were introduced in the period of emergency by a parliament whose tenure had been extended. So in a way, the petitioners were trying to question the, you can say, legitimacy of this introduction in the first place. Second, they say it forced people to follow certain ideologies, compulsion as such, in a way to follow ideologies of socialism and secularism. Third issue that is raised was date of adoption. Being present in the preamble means that these words can't be added later. These words can't be added later. So, as you know, the preamble ends. Preamble ends with the date on which the Constitution is adopted. And in that same preamble, which is ending with a date, later on words are being added. So therefore, they argued that this is not appropriate way of doing it. You cannot, impose certain ideas on the founding fathers as such. They also felt that secular word as such was deliberately excluded by the framers of the Constitution. And imposing that word is not right. Socialist also tied the center's hands. The word socialist also tied the center's hand when it had to implement certain economic policies. यानी सेंटर को एक तरीके से ये लिमिट करने का काम ये वर्ड वहां पर में करता है. ये सारे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स प्रेजेंट किए थे किसने? The petitioners of these cases. अब इन केसेस को सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया ने डिसमिस किया है. नाउ लेट अस सी व्हाट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज टू से ऑन दीज arguments. Please excuse me, I'm having a sore throat, so that's why a little bit of coughing is going on. Chief Justice of India, Justice Khanna headed division bench, dismissed these pleas by multiple people. It said, that bench said that these values or ideas are actually integral to the Indian Constitution. Furthermore, they say that socialism in India must not be seen like the socialism as espoused by Western thinkers. भारत में समाजवाद की संकल्पना ये अपने आप में एक different रंग, it has a different hue altogether. It should not be construed with the idea as given in the West. तो भारत की आइडिया कैसे है? भारत की आइडिया is about providing a welfare state which provides equality of opportunity and justice to all the citizens. Equality of opportunity and justice to all the citizens. भारत का समाजवाद, Indian socialism, does not necessarily put any restrictions on the private sector. It is not about state being in control of all the means of production as Karl Marx would have envisioned during his times. The idea over here is different. It addresses the needs of poor through various different policy instruments, may it be Manrega, may it be some other issues, some other policy measures, direct benefit transfer, JAM. So many different steps have been taken by the government to ensure that the poor are not left high and dry, that the poor are taken well care of. तो इस तरीके से भारत का समाजवाद ये वेस्ट से डिफरेंट है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी शुड नॉट हैव एनी इशू विद दिस वर्ड बीइंग देयर इन द preamble itself. Second issue is about the word secularism. What do they say about secularism? Here also they specifically underline that secularism in India is not about Western idea of secularism as it evolved, Enlightenment and post-Enlightenment period. Indian secularism neither supports any religion nor penalizes the profession and practice of any faith. It is not about the Western idea of state and religion being completely different. Here the idea is has a very Indian tone to it. It is more akin to Sarva Dharma Samabhav rather than what the Western idea of secularism is as it evolved from the French Revolution. Okay, several ideals of a preamble which were accepted by the founding fathers, the Constituent Assembly, may it be fraternity, may it be equality, may it be dignity of the individual, may it be liberty, all of these represent what? They represent the secular ethos of our constitution. They represent the secular ideals of the freedom struggle, and therefore we should not have any objection regarding this. Third thing that they say is that the constitution is a living document, which means what? It is open to interpretation. The constitution is not rigid. Constitution is not fossilized. The constitution is responding to the changing scenario world over, across the country. It has to be flexible enough to reflect the mood of the age, and hence there is absolutely no issue with amendments being made. Moreover, it also says that the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, 42nd इमरजेंसी पीरियड का है जैसा आप जानते हैं, एंड 44th took place after the next election. Mrs. Gandhi and Congress were defeated, and we had the experiment of the Janata Party government, right? Now the Janata government brought about the 44th amendment, and it in many ways nullified some of the effects of the 42nd amendment. But here also it retained the changes to the preamble introduced by 42nd Amendment. So subsequent political parties coming together, fighting against the backdrop of emergency, they also retained these words in the Constitution. This is what is very, very significant. Okay. Now, further analysis that some of the articles have given. SR Bomai case, very landmark case, center-state relations and many other aspects touched upon in this case. SR Bomai case said that secularism is part of the basic feature of our constitution. That is how significant it is. Indian secularism, as we discussed, is different from Western idea of complete separation of state and religion. State neither supports any religion nor penalizes profession and practice of any one religion. But at the same time, it is not like West, where state will not have any kind of say or influence. State has the power to regulate secular aspects of religion, may it be economic, financial, political, and other secular aspects. These can be regulated by the state. Like, for example, we have had abolition of untouchability. We have had practices like triple talaq banned, made illegal. What is this? State has a role to play in terms of religion, but it is equidistant from people professing different religions. That is what is Indian secularism, and there should be no objection or problem to that in the view of this judgment. Several provisions in the Constitution already are secular in nature, as we saw in many examples. Kesavananda Bharati case, 1973, very important case. It clearly stated that preamble is subject to amending power of the parliament. So there is no issue with amendment of the preamble also. Why? Because parliament has that power, and hence 42nd Amendment Act should not be an issue regarding power of amendment of the preamble. Very clearly, the preamble can be amended. This is given in the landmark Kesavananda Bharati case. So this is analysis from different articles about Indian secularism. Now briefly about Indian socialism. Indian socialism, unlike the core ideas given by Marx and other Western thinkers, is more about economic and social justice. It is not about a particular model of economy that is to be followed. It is more about no one in the country being disadvantaged due to economic and social circumstances. So the idea of socialism in India is very different from the West. It is more a welfare state kind of an idea, and therefore there should be no objection to this as well. Socialist word, for example, has not prevented the government from implementation of liberal economic policies. The government has introduced reforms, and several of these reforms have given more and more say, more and more power to whom? To the private sector, more and more involvement of private sector in the economy. The government has been rolling back, as they say. Socialist word in the Constitution has not stopped the government from doing that. This was an argument given by the petitioners, so that argument is also rejected as such. Let us now see the next article. I hope you understood the context of the first issue regarding the judgment on introduction of the words socialism and secularism in the preamble. The next article is the greatest show must go on. This article was written by S.Y. Qureshi sir. To those who are very keen on joining the Indian Administrative Service, some of the legendary IAS officers, you must read about them, read their books, their lives, the contribution that they made will inspire you. And definitely S.Y. Qureshi sir is one such officer who has had a very remarkable career as an IAS officer, and he headed, of course, the Election Commission. He was the Chief Election Commissioner of India, and he has given in this article some analysis of the limitations, reforms that are required. So this is an important article for us. He is well known for his talks on this issue. He has written multiple books also on elections in India, and therefore the insights that we get from him are certainly very useful for us. All right. So let us start our discussion. Why is this issue in news? 26 November marked the Constitution Day. And of course, on this date, we had adopted the Constitution. And in that context, there was a flurry of articles, and this article is also in that same background. Constituent Assembly had worked for several months before it finalized this Constitution. And the goal of the Constituent Assembly was to provide a functioning democratic country. For millennia, the subcontinent had been ruled by rule of men, not rule of law. Now we wanted the sovereignty to be with the people, not concentration of power. We wanted proper democratic system to function. And for this purpose, there's a very nice quote that you can use in your answers maybe somewhere. If a democratic country was the goal, the Constituent Assembly, then free and fair election were its means. Free and fair election were its means. Okay? So whenever we are writing answers about elections, you can quote this particular quote in either introduction or conclusion, depending on the context. And this can be a beautiful way of starting or closing your answers. In the course of these lectures, I'm going to specifically highlight certain important quotes by personalities, important personalities who have a say in policy making, who have an important role to play, which can be used in your answers and essays. I want you to maintain a separate, Google Sheet or whatever form you would like to. And as we go along, you should collect these quotes. Do follow my channel also. There will be some regular updates regarding such value addition material. So for this purpose, the Constituent Assembly of India created the Election Commission. Election Commission under Article 324. What is the aim of Election Commission? The Election Commission's aim is superintendence, direction, and control of elections in India. January 25, 1950, this body, one day before the Republic came into existence, this body was born. So see, in that way, it is very significant. Before the Republic is inaugurated, in that sense, we have Election Commission in India ready to take on the challenge of maintaining this Republic. So this is the wisdom of our founding fathers, who gave some very special role to the Election Commission of India. You can see that subcommittee that was created in the Constituent Assembly for fundamental rights. This subcommittee recognized the independence of and non-interference by executive and legislature in elections as a fundamental right. Fundamental right के तौर पर इस चीज को accept किया था हमारे founding fathers ने. What does this show? This shows that election are the lifeblood of a democracy. फ्री एंड फेयर इलेक्शंस से ही डेमोक्रेसी की हेल्थ जांची जा सकती है, और इसके लिए ही एक इंडिपेंडेंट बॉडी विद सफिशिएंट प्रोटेक्शन वाज क्रिएटेड बाय द फाउंडिंग फादर्स. आर्टिकल 329 even barred judiciary from interfering in political process to ensure uninterrupted elections. इंडिपेंडेंस को गार्ड करने के लिए आर्टिकल 329 specifically introduced in the constitution. What does it talk about? It says even the judiciary cannot interfere before the electoral process is completed. Yes, let the process get completed, and after that, if there are any issues, then redressal can be sought. But till that point, we cannot go into the functioning as such of the electoral process. क्यों किया है ये? ताकि इंडिपेंडेंस जो है वो गार्ड किया जा सके इलेक्शन कमीशन का, उसकी फंक्शनिंग का. डिपार्टिंग फ्रॉम फेडरल प्रिंसिपल, very significant point. Departing from federal principle, state elections were to be done by Central Election Commission. There was a lot of debate in the Constituent Assembly at that time whether the elections at state level should be done by Central Election Commission or State Election Commission. But ultimately it was decided that it is proper that Central Election Commission does it, because otherwise there was a chance that State Election Commission can be influenced by the executive at the state level. So this kind of protection has been accorded to the Election Commission of India. Why this protection is accorded? Because the process of election is very central to a healthy democracy. Got this idea, guys? Okay. The role of Supreme Court. Supreme Court has time and again emphasized the importance of the functioning of Election Commission of India and free and fair elections. What does Supreme Court say? Democracy cannot survive without free and fair elections. Union of India versus ADR. This is called as ADR case. ADRs is a civil society organization, Association for Democratic Reforms, if I remember exactly. It is very close to that, even if I might be wrong. ADR has taken several important measures to make our democracy more functional, more people-oriented. They have filed several cases. They have tried to bring about more and more transparency. One good example is the app which used to be called as Mera Neta app. On this app, you could access the information that the candidates, political candidates, they give when they file their nomination papers. So sitting in the comforts of your home, you can easily get the information of any candidate contesting any election in the country. And many such steps have been taken by ADR. They have a very good website. You may like to visit their website also. Supreme Court also held that free and fair election is part of the basic structure of our constitution. This is the PUCL case and Nota judgment. Okay. Supreme Court earlier struck down electoral bonds also as unconstitutional and manifestly arbitrary. The electoral bonds was a reform that the government had introduced. The aim was to bring about more transparency in political funding, to make it routed via the official channels rather than black money. But then there were some inherent challenges in its functioning. The Supreme Court did not hold back, and it struck down the concept or idea of electoral bonds also. Okay. Recognition of India's election process. The world over, the Election Commission of India and elections in India are recognized for their management robustness as well as their fairness and many other aspects regarding it. Some quotes that can come in handy. Hillary Clinton had called them gold standard. Gold standard. Okay. New York Times had called India's general election as the greatest show on earth. और इसी से इस आर्टिकल का टाइटल लिया गया दोस्तों, The Greatest Show Must Go On. So it is the biggest management exercise in the whole world. Then the writer S.Y. Qureshi sir tells us that ये सब जहां पर में बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन इसके बावजूद there are some challenges. बढ़िया इलेक्शन का मतलब ऑटोमेटिकली बढ़िया डेमोक्रेसी नहीं होता है. ठीक है. It does not necessarily translate into a great democracy. अगर आप recent times देखेंगे तो कई सारे डेमोक्रेटिक इंडाइसिस के अंदर में भारत की जो डेमोक्रेसी है इसको फ्लॉड माना गया है. There have been many issues and that is why it is considered as a or categorized as a flawed democracy. What are the challenges or problems? Illiteracy, poor gender participation, corruption, attack on civil liberties, and political culture overall in India. This has led to criticism on India's overall democratic setup or functioning. For this reason, there have to be some reforms that need to be implemented. First, S.Y. Qureshi sir tells us what Election Commission of India has done successfully. And one major area of success has been women's participation. Women's participation has enhanced over the recent years, and definitely Election Commission of India deserves credit for that. It has addressed the gender skew in the electoral roles of our country. Last Lok Sabha election mein there were 948 women for 1000 men, जबकि उससे पहले वाली में it was 928. So this figure has progressively gone on increasing. Furthermore, we also see that more participation of women is being encouraged through different affirmative actions. Reservation for women in local bodies was existing for quite some time now, and we have also finally passed the reservation bill for women in parliament and state assemblies. 2029 say this is going to be executed. So this is a great win as such for Indian democracy, more participation of women. But this is not to say that automatically all challenges are solved. There are many challenges which still persist. One major challenge in that is use of black money. Parallel economy, black money, funds the electoral process. And this is further connected, interlinked with criminalization in politics in India. Criminalization. Increasingly, we are seeing that people with criminal backgrounds, they are contesting elections across all levels. और इससे एक perception create हो जाता है that शरीफ आदमी का काम नहीं है politics में जाना. Okay. Now this is a lethargy that people educated, more educated people have. Inertia है, political process में participate करने से घबराते हैं. But one reason definitely that is attributed is the criminalization that has happened. If you see the last Lok Sabha elections, out of those who have been elected, 46% MPs have criminal cases against them. 46% of MPs have criminal cases against them. So almost half of the parliament has cases against them. तभी यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा एक रियलिस्टिक भी हमको होना जरूरी है. देखिए, जब आप मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट होते हैं तो नेचुरली आप लंबे अरसे से आप पॉलिटिक्स में होते हो, और जब आप पॉलिटिक्स में होते हो तो आप धरना, आंदोलन, बहुत सारी चीजें आपको करनी पड़ती हैं और करनी ही चाहिए. बट देन ऐसी केसेस के अंदर में आपके ऊपर में छोटे मोटे केसेस जो है वो आपके ऊपर फाइल किए जाते हैं, एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो काउंटेड. सो इन दैट सेंस 46% that it includes such cases also. So that is one thing that we must remember. Number two, politics is a tough game. There will always be rivalries, people who will be opposing you, political parties, individuals, etc. तो बहुत सारे fake cases भी होती हैं. So again, that also needs to be factored in, so we don't get a real clear picture. S.Y. कुरैशी सर ने और बहुत और लोगों ने कुछ रिफॉर्म्स इसमें सजेस्ट किए हैं, that those people against whom charge sheet has been filed. Okay, केस तो किसी पर भी हो सकता है, so we are not going into that. But if a charge sheet has been filed, means what? Preliminary कुछ investigation पुलिस ने उसमें complete कर दिया है, and they have found strong reasons or evidence against that person. Only then the charge sheet will be filed. So if the charge sheet is filed, then in that case we need to stop such persons from contesting the elections. So many such reforms are suggested. As we go along in due course, we'll discuss more on this topic. Next is 93% of the member of parliaments are crorepati's. Not that we grudge their wealth, but what it does show is that it is difficult for people from modest backgrounds to actually contest in elections. Recent years mein horse trading has become rampant across many different states. We have seen very ugly episodes of this taking place, and hence this is another blot that we definitely have on our democracy. So we need to implement some reforms that have been mentioned over here. Let's see them. Limit on the expenditure of political parties. Now, right now, the expenditure is limited for an individual candidate. जब आप इलेक्शन कंटेस्ट कर रहे होते हो तो आपको डेली बेसिस पर इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया को आपको अपना अकाउंट सबमिट करना होता है, फाइनल भी आपको अकाउंट देना होता है. Even if you're on the losing side, you still have to submit, your entire expenses. So individual candidate पर limitations है, but political parties पर नहीं है. So this in a way defeats the purpose. Okay. In fact, it makes things more difficult for independent candidates as such, who are not associated with any party. So that's again a different type of unfairness. So what should happen? We should have limit on political parties ka expenditure also. State funding of parties must be implemented. State funding with audit. Okay. State funding as in state funding of parties. This is an idea that S.Y. Qureshi sir has mooted for some years now. State funding individual election में जो खड़ा है उसके लिए नहीं होगा. It will be only for the political parties, and this will be based on last performance of that party in the previous election. So for example, if it's a state assembly election, तो पिछले state assembly election में performance कैसा था उस पार्टी का, उसके बेसिस के ऊपर स्टेट उसको फंड करेगा. बट इन lieu of that, private donations will be banned. Private donations will be banned. So this is an idea that this is a major reform that has been suggested. Okay, right. Let's go ahead. Yes. Next, he talks about creation of a national election fund. National election fund. National election fund is established for the sake of providing funds for political parties to contest election. सारी प्रॉब्लम की जड़ कहाँ है? इलेक्शंस एक्सपेंसिव होते हैं, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज डिपेंडेंट हो जाती हैं डोनर्स के ऊपर, एंड देन डोनर्स आर गिविंग मनी नॉट आउट ऑफ फिलैंथ्रोपी, दे एक्सपेक्ट क्विड प्रो को. ठीक है, सो दिस इज अ लैटिन फ्रेज गाइस, यू कैन रिमेंबर दिस. क्विड प्रो को means what? They expect something in return for what they are providing. This is the root cause of corruption in many ways. Corruption की शुरुआत जो है वहाँ electoral funding से होती है, बड़े corruption की. We're not talking about bribing the हवलदार if you jump the signal. Big corruption which really has impact on the country. तो उसकी शुरुआत यहाँ से होती है. देखिए, when a small fellow he indulges in corruption, उसका एक अपना justification क्या होता है? People higher up, they are doing corruption in hundreds and thousands of crores. So if I take a few hundred rupees, what is the big deal about it? So he in a way kind of justifies his corruption by the corruption on the policy level or systemic level. Getting this? And that kind of corruption starts where? It starts in the electoral arena. So if we want to stop corruption, we have to start top down. Okay, not bottom up. Top down is very important. Last reform suggested by sir in this article is protection of election commissioners from removal from their office. So the same level of protection that is guaranteed to the Chief Election Commissioner of India, that must be extended to the other election commissioners also. They must be at par with the CEC when it comes to protection. So this is another major reform that he has suggested. Okay, let's take the next article now. Right. The next article is about a rising trend that we are seeing in India, which is colloquially or popularly being called as digital arrests. Now you see me, now you don't. The Hindu में publish हुआ था, and I have referred to some other sources also and added content to prepare a fairly comprehensive write-up for you. So what is this issue? This issue is about rising digital arrests in India. Digital arrests have been reported from across the country, and this year there have been more than 92,000 such cases that have come to light. More than 2,000 crore, 2,140 crore worth of scams have been committed through this one type of cybercrime alone. Okay, so you can imagine the scale and size of this scam. A person no less than the Prime Minister himself, recently, last week of October, he warned the citizens of India of this rising crime, which is, ऑफिशियली ऐसा कोई टर्म नहीं है, बट कलोक्वली जिसको हम बोली भाषा कहते हैं, इट इज बीइंग कॉल्ड एज व्हाट? इट इज बीइंग कॉल्ड एज डिजिटल अरेस्ट. So what is meant by this digital arrest in the first place? Let us try to understand that. Digital arrest कुछ और नहीं है बल्कि एक टाइप का साइबर फ्रॉड या स्कैम है. इट्स अ फॉर्म ऑफ व्हाट? साइबर फ्रॉड और स्कैम. इसमें क्या होता है? स्कैमर्स इम्पर्सोनेट करते हैं लॉ एनफोर्समेंट ऑफिशियल्स या कोई और गवर्नमेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स को. लॉ एनफोर्समेंट ऑफिशियल्स, चाहे वो पुलिस हो सकते हैं, कस्टम्स हो सकता है, या और कोई ऑफिशियल्स होंगे, या फिर कोई और गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया. इनको इमिटेट या इम्पर्सोनेट करके ये विक्टिम्स को प्रेशराइज करते हैं इनटू पेइंग लार्ज अमाउंट्स ऑफ मनी थ्रू साइकोलॉजिकल मैनिपुलेशन एंड थ्रेट्स in audio or video calls. Audio or video calls. So through these calls, these scammers, they will imitate or impersonate a police officer. They will talk like a police officer. Their entire appearance, including the uniform, the office setting, everything will be such that the person will believe easily that the person on the other side, the scammer, is a genuine, authentic officer, and there is something really big that has happened because of me. The victims are pressurized in this manner to actually pay the scammers money to avoid further legal action. Okay? Yes, you may feel that this is coming out of a movie. No, this is not a movie. This is something that is happening rather commonly now, and we really need to be very careful about it. कैसे काम करता है ये स्कैम? How do these scammers, operate to make themselves so believable and loot the money of hard-earned money of common people? Let us try to understand that. First stage in this is gathering of personal information. Very crucial point. Personal information data is collected from the dark web. Guys, we are interacting so much on the telephone, so much on different platforms, medias. ये सारा information जो है वो collect होता है, mine होता है, and a lot of it is up for sale on the dark web for amounts as less as 10 paisa. Personal information of people is sold on the dark web. और फिर ये information को study करके, उसको use करके, ये जो scammer होता है वो क्या करता है? He makes a phone or video call. A lot of times it is video call because that becomes very authentic to the target. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोई लेडी है, एक्चुअल केस जो हुई थी न्यूज़पेपर में रिपोर्ट, वो बता रहा हूँ. कोई लेडी है, उसका बेटा several thousand kilometers away is studying in some distant town or city. So the scammer will call posing as a police officer that your son, he'll tell his name, he is studying in so and so college and he has been involved in so and so crime, and if you want that there should be no action against your son, then you should give the money, give so and so amount to me. Only then your son can be saved. Now when he is giving all this information, the name of the son, where he is studying, so on and so forth, and he is looking, behaving, entire appearance, office setting, everything is like that of a police officer, the authenticity of that, or the believability rather I should say, of that gets enhanced. They use all kind of props, whatever are required. They'll pretend as any type of official, police officer, RBI officer, so on and so forth. Fake uniform, ID card, documents, office settings, everything will be done. Like if you've seen that movie Special 26, Akshay Kumar, Anupam Kher, the way they pull off these scams, right? So on very much those lines, they do this. Okay. Victims are falsely accused of being involved in some serious crime. They'll tell that even if you're not involved, your information, your contact, your telephone or something like that has been used for this particular crime, and therefore since it's a very serious crime, drug trafficking, money laundering, etc., you will now be charged for that and consequently you will have to face very severe consequences. What happens because of this? Panic. Complete panic of the victim. He's told that you are supposed to keep the cameras and microphones on, and till you pay the money you are not, left alone. There was a case where the person who was being scammed, his mobile camera was kept on, and he was said that even if he wanted to go to use the washroom, he had to first show the washroom that there was no one inside, and only then he was allowed a few minutes to take a break for nature's call. In this time they are not allowed to inform anyone. अब इतना सारा जब प्रेशर डाला जाता है, the victim ultimately transfers money to this account, and as soon as the account where money is transferred, that money is sent to several multiple accounts, and from there it is withdrawn. So this is a very organized kind of a crime or racket that is taking place right now, and that is why Prime Minister Modi himself had to apprise the country about this grave threat. Okay, now how is it that this kind of a scam is taking place on such a large scale? We'll try to understand that now. This scam is having a very, very strong international angle to it. Many calls originate from foreign countries. They're not even coming from India. They are coming from foreign countries. It's an organized racket by gangs who operate out of what are called as scam compounds. Remember this term, it's a keyword. Remember this. Scam compounds in Asian countries like Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Azerbaijan. Okay? From these countries, these people are operating. United Nations report highlights that Indian youth are being lured with fake job offers like jobs in IT sector and stuff like that, and there they are then taken to these scam compounds. Several thousand Indian youth are reportedly trafficked in this manner, and then there they are forced to do all these sort of scam calling. So it's a very well oiled kind of a machinery that on all levels is illegal, immoral, and it is causing a great havoc in people's lives. When these youth, Indian youth, unsuspecting of course, I had read about a case of somebody from Maharashtra who was lucky enough that he was able to escape. He had told his story. He was a young computer graduate, and he was told that he will get a good job in one of these Southeast Asian countries. And when he went over there physically he was literally abducted, and he was taken to one of these scam compounds where he was trained how to commit all of these different type of frauds and cheatings. And there were many other like him, people who were caught. They were not allowed to talk to anybody. Even if one brief call had to be made to the family, somebody was there before them to see that they don't spill the beans. So in this way, this particular scam is operating. जनरली ये थाईलैंड वगैरह की तरफ में ये कंपनीज का नाम जो है वो बताया जाता है, बट व्हेन द गाय फाइनली लैंड्स इन थाईलैंड अपॉन अराइवल, he is then taken across the border to places like Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos, where these scams are taking place. A lot of these owners of these companies who are doing the scam are Chinese passport holders. It is being reported. यूनाइटेड नेशंस की रिपोर्ट ने इसके ऊपर में काफी हमको डिटेल में इंफॉर्मेशन दे रखी है. ठीक है. 1300 Indians, as many as 1300 have been rescued in recent times from such scam compounds. Just from May to August, 1300, and there are several thousand reportedly who are being held against their wish. अब वो करना नहीं चाहते हैं, लेकिन a lot of them have been caught in the process. They have no escape over there. They are beaten, abused, tortured if they don't do this. कोई escape नहीं होता. I4C stands for Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center. I4C, nodal agency of Government of India to deal with cyber crime. I4C क्या कहता है? Half of the cyber crime complaints on India's national helpline 1930, याद रखिएगा इसको. This is linked to origins from China, Cambodia, or Myanmar. So these are the countries that are resulting in these kind of crimes taking place in India. So what needs to be done? Solutions. Whenever one gets this kind of a call, one needs to be very, very suspicious about these. One has to be mentally strong. Whatever the pressure it is being put on you, always try to ensure that you remain mentally strong and resist manipulation attempts. If you end up paying some amount, then immediately call up the helpline. If it is done in a quick window of few minutes, then that transaction can be stopped, the amount can be frozen. RBI and other Indian agencies are being very proactive on this, and we are seeing that a lot of these amounts have been frozen and frauds have been prevented. We can file complaints against local cybercrime cell. Apart from this, police must specially recruit and train manpower who can be cyber security experts. Personal data which is being sold on the dark web. अब यहाँ तो individual कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता, so the state needs to address this in collaboration with data platforms. Like for example, Telegram particularly is known to have a lot of this data being sold at very dirt cheap amount, or 10 paise, according to one of these reports in the newspaper. Or in 10 paise you can get personal information of different people. Using that information, then people carry out these kind of scams. So we need to be really very, very particular about these kind of things that are happening. All right, let's take the next issue now. In defense of India, this is the next article that we are seeing. This article by C. Rajamohan. C. Rajamohan writes a weekly column for Indian Express where he discusses diplomacy and military security for the country. And he has written this article in defense of India in context of visit of our Raksha Mantri, defense minister. In government circles, especially in the armed forces, defense minister is not that common. They generally prefer to address him as Raksha Mantri, RM. So RM sir had went to Southeast Asian Defense Ministers Forum in Laos. There is tremendous potential for India to develop cooperation with like-minded Southeast Asian countries. Southeast Asian countries have a similar problem that everybody is facing in this region. And what is that? That is belligerent rise of China. Recent decade and a half or two, we can say that China has grown tremendously, not only in terms of its economy, but also significantly in terms of its military capabilities. और ये जो growth है या rise है China का, it has not been a very peaceful rise over the last decade and a half, particularly Xi Jinping वाला जो period है, उस period में warrior diplomacy and blue water navy and whatnot, China has been flexing its muscle in the region, especially South China Sea और आसपास के area में. Many of these Southeast Asian countries are feeling the heat of this rise of China. China की assertiveness, territorial issues पर हमको देखने मिलती है. We also have in a way faced problems because of this on our border. So China has it has not become a pariah state per se, but definitely it has antagonized a lot of its neighbors because of this rising assertiveness that it shows on these issues. To deal with this, we need to have strong and modern defense industrial base. Because if we have to compete with China, if we have to be strong enough to withstand the Chinese pressure, then we have to be strong militarily. And this is the right time as well as opportunity for India to modernize its industrial base. And in this process, we can get help from Southeast Asian countries and many others in the region, extended region. Okay. What are some recent developments in this context? So yes, India has definitely taken cognizance of that. And we are seeing that India is cooperating, trying to develop its military diplomacy with countries in this region. Recently, we signed an agreement with Australia. This agreement was about air-to-air refueling of aircrafts, and This kind of agreement will help to enhance the reach of Indian Air Force as well as the Australian Air Force. प्लस इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी भी इंप्रूव होगी. देखिए, अकेले कोई भी चाइना का नेबर चाइना के साथ में फाइट नहीं कर सकता. And therefore, since everybody has a common, I mean, if I may say, a bully in the region and they are facing problems because of that, तो क्या करना पड़ेगा? People will have to pool their resources together, and that is why these kind of agreements are being entered into. Of course, not so brazenly being talked about, but one major reason behind these kind of agreements is China. So this is one example that we can cite about. Second example is with Japan. With Japan also we have signed a MOU basically for we have signed an MOU with Japan for production of stealth equipment for India's warships. Stealth equipment. Stealth का मतलब क्या होता है? Stealth, something being done stealthily means without others being able to notice that, right? So when our warships or aeroplanes, they are going about doing their work, they should not be located by the enemy's radars. And that kind of a technology is called as stealth technology. So we have signed an MOU with Japan, and we are also in talks for industrial collaboration with Japan for defense sector. China's military capability is an issue of concern for India and many other neighbors of China. Why is that so? Number one, because of rising Chinese defense expenditure, which is more than any of the Chinese neighbors. China's industrial infrastructure has enhanced tremendously. China is the factory of the world now. It's known for its manufacturing prowess. और ये definitely उसकी defense industry को भी boost करता है, help करता है. China has an impressive military modernization program. China has the largest number of indigenous aircraft carriers. China is a blue water navy. Blue water navy means a navy which can operate at very far distances from its shore. China is a blue water navy today. It is producing what do you call that? Submarines at a rate that is highest in the world. All of these things have immensely helped China to become a hegemon in the region. Naturally, all of this has come with great investment in research and development for defense sector. This cannot be matched by any neighbor of China. But all these neighbors have to deal with a rising China, and for this reason, people have to come together and especially look for a balancing power, which turns out to be USA. Since China के साथ में compete नहीं किया जा सकता है, that is why security cooperation with USA becomes crucial. This is the reason why a lot of these Southeast Asian countries are pretty warm to USA, because they know if they have to compete with China, then they need to have a counterbalance, and USA plays that exact same role. Not that USA is perfectly fair, and not that USA has only best interest of these countries in mind, but in diplomacy, you have to ensure that you make your moves very smartly. एक बड़ा अच्छा quote था diplomacy में, I think you can write it down somewhere, and it says, in diplomacy, if you are not at the table, then you are on the menu. Okay, let that sink in. If you are not at the table, then you are on the menu. So it's very important, very crucial that you participate in the processes of international relations. So these countries, they are trying to balance it with USA's might. इसके retaliation में China raises the slogan of Asia for Asians. The whole idea is that it wants to keep USA out of this region. USA की hegemony को completely खत्म करना है, ये China का goal है. अब how does USA look at this? USA is definitely fearful of China's rise. Till early 2000s, China's rise was relatively unnoticed. But as we reach the mid 2000s, the first decade of the century, around the mid of that 2000 wala period, USA very well realized that its next major challenge is going to come from China. And from that point onwards, USA has, as Obama used to say, pivoted to Asia. Okay, so USA, which was more centric towards Middle East, more centric towards European issues, not that much bothered about Asia, particularly East Asia. That approach completely changed with the rise of China. USA does not any longer enjoy overwhelming military dominance in this region, जो कि पहले होता था. ठीक है? US forces are qualitatively more superior. Yes, in terms of, you can say, the firepower, USA is definitely having an edge over China. But if you see in terms of quantitative advantage, remember this, guys, especially if you are preparing for interview, these kind of insights are important. In terms of quantitative advantage, China has definitely shifted the balance in its favor. And because of this shift in balance, USA is concerned, USA is worried. And this is the reason why, Quad and such other initiatives are very significant. Okay? USA, unlike China, is involved in multiple different theaters. थिएटर किसको कहते हैं? मिलिट्री लैंग्वेज के अंदर में एक, जैसे हम ज्योग्राफी में भी टॉक अबाउट वाटरशेड. Okay, one basin of a river, right? That entire area is called as a watershed. So basically, military parlance में one major zone of conflict that is called as theater. So USA is in multiple theaters. कौन से theaters हैं? USA की अपनी NATO commitments हैं. आप देखिए जो कुछ भी चल रहा है in Ukraine, USA is supplying arms and ammunitions over there. Diplomatically, it is heavily invested in Ukraine. Then NATO के अलावा Middle East, you know what is happening with Israel and Palestine. USA, being natural ally, so to speak, of Israel, is heavily invested in that process, militarily, diplomatically, intelligence-wise. Everything USA is involved. China, on the other hand, has a very clear focus. China अभी इस स्टेज पे उतना बड़ा ग्लोबल पावर है नहीं, so it does not have to scatter itself. It is focused only on where? On its own Asian neighborhood. So unlike USA, which is divided or scattered, China is much more focused in its approach. American military industrial complex, ये term को याद रखना है आपको, military industrial complex. This was a term that was given by President Eisenhower. In his farewell speech, he had spoken about military industrial complex. Your companies like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, these companies manufacture big planes, warships, big weapons, और naturally इनका चूंकि business ये है ये सारी चीजें manufacture करना, they have an interest that America is involved in wars, not directly, but is involved in supporting others, supplying stuff. So a lot of purchase of their military hardware will take place. This American military industrial complex has a very strong role to play in America's politics also. We'll talk about that in detail some other day. They can't mass produce weapons to meet the current demands of US commitments. USA का military complex जो है दुनिया भर में famous है for qualitatively producing great stuff, but in terms of quantity, USA is involved so many places. It is not able to fulfill that responsibility. Its facilities are now becoming outdated and it doesn't have the same level of skill as it once had. This is what the writer says. Japan and Korea, they are US allies. Japan and Korea, they are modern and advanced, but their problem is they are having an aging workforce and a declining population. So these two American allies cannot do anything significant in controlling or fighting with China. Europe is unable to supply Ukraine, so Europe is also burdened. The USA-led Western, you can say, powers or West aligned powers in Asia, they are not really in a position to do anything significant to deal with this issue. This creates opportunity for India. Interesting over here. Opportunity for India. Modernization of defense production can be accelerated. We are already talking about reorganizing DRDO. High level committee has suggested this. Defense Research and Development Organization. India has stepped up its military diplomacy also. Increasingly, we are participating in various war games. We are entering into military contracts with other people to buy stuff as well as sell Indian stuff. India is using that diplomatic heft to fulfill its military related aspects also. Rolling out of fast reforms is now needed, and seizing this international opportunity that has come India's way is crucial. So this was an article by the great C. Rajamohan sir, who is a well-known commentator on India's international relations. Let's go with the next issue now. The next article is ban this carcinogenic heartburn drug. What is the issue? GSK, the famous pharmaceutical company GSK, has entered into a record settlement of US $2.2 billion. 2.2 billion का settlement किया है. What is this settlement about? This settlement is about closing all the legal lawsuits, multiple lawsuits that had been filed regarding one of its best selling drug to treat acidity, जो हम popularly बोलते हैं. It's called as acid reflux in medical terminology. This drug was known as a Zantac. You'll see a lot of these acidity based drugs or acidity curing drugs. They are ending with this kind of name, Rantac, Zantac, so on and so forth. This drug had an active ingredient called as ranitidine. So remember, the company's name is GSK. For prelims also this is important. GSK. Drug was Zantac and ingredient was ranitidine. Why is this ranitidine important? Because ranitidine contained cancer-causing substance called as N-nitrosodimethylamine. Short form NDMA. NDMA. NDMA is a cancer-causing. It's a cancer-causing ingredient that was present in excess quantity in that particular drug. How much excess? Excess of 30 lakh nanograms in some samples, whereas the acceptable or tolerable limit was 96 nanograms. 96 nanograms kahan aur jo mila hai 30 lakhs nanograms. You can see that there was a huge amount of this impurity. The issue over here is about this molecule. Which molecule? NDMA. It's not about the company particularly. Yani, it's not just that GSK was having it. United States ka FDA, which is Food and Drug Administration, very strict body that regulates this sector. Food and Drug Organization and European Medical Agency EMA, both these agencies had stopped ranitidine in their respective, you can say, jurisdictions as early as in 2020 itself. And both these agencies were proactive and they stopped the production of ranitidine in their areas. GSK also had withdrawn ranitidine in India in 2020 once it realized that. Okay, but no steps were taken to stop other pharmaceutical companies in India from doing the same. और दूसरी जो pharmaceutical companies हैं उनको रोकने के लिए जो है वो प्रयास नहीं किए गए. अब यहां पर में क्रिटिसिज्म या क्वेश्चन मार्क क्रिएट होता है इस पूरे सेक्टर के रेगुलेशन पर. दो बड़े सवाल यहां पर में क्रिएट होते हैं. पहला सवाल है कि हम क्यों डिटेक्ट नहीं कर पाए इस presence of impurity को, why we were not able to detect, and why could we not respond to similar levels of ranitidine? पहला सवाल. दूसरा, ठीक है, we were not able to do, but why government hasn't acted over the last 5 years to stop other pharmaceutical companies which are producing this kind of stuff? This is the question mark. Then this article tells us some important structural aspects about India's pharmaceutical sector, and in my view it is important to understand how this entire stuff works. So pharma standards in India, how are they set? Pharma standards in India are set by Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, IPC. Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, IPC, not Indian Penal Code. Remember, Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. अब ये कहाँ आती है बॉडी? ये एक ऑटोनॉमस बॉडी है अंडर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ, एंड द हेल्थ सेक्रेटरी इज द चेयरमैन ऑफ दिस बॉडी. हेल्थ सेक्रेटरी इज द चेयरमैन. क्या काम होता है आईपीसी का? आईपीसी का काम है सेटिंग अप द स्टैंडर्ड्स फॉर ड्रग्स इन इंडिया, सेटिंग अप द स्टैंडर्ड्स फॉर मेडिकल ड्रग्स इन इंडिया, इंक्लूडिंग the acceptable levels of impurities. जैसे हमने ranitidine में carcinogenic substance देखा है, उसका एक certain level था that is tolerable. Beyond that it is not. So what will be the standards of these impurities? That also IPC decides. It also gives testing protocol. अब हमने standard तो set कर लिया, content के बारे में बता दिया, impurities की limits बता दी. Now, how are we going to test that? These testing protocols are also given by the IPC. Okay? Manufacture and supply reference standards and impurity standards is what the role of IPC is, we can say in a nutshell. तो ये सारे standards बनाने का काम जो है ये कौन करता है? वो IPC करती है. ये हमको ध्यान में रखना होगा. IPC के नीचे आती है नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन जो कि हर स्टेट लेवल पर होती है. दे आर कॉल्ड एज स्टेट ड्रग कंट्रोलर्स. दिस इज एट द लेवल ऑफ ऑल द स्टेट्स. दे आर सपोज टू एंश्योर दैट ड्रग मैन्युफैक्चरर्स comply with the quality standards that have been laid down by the IPC. So standards maintain हो रहे हैं या नहीं हो रहे हैं, इसका कंप्लायंस इंश्योर करना किसका काम है? स्टेट ड्रग कंट्रोलर्स का. स्टैंडर्ड्स बनाने का काम आईपीसी का है. ठीक है. दे आर ऑल्सो द वंस हु इशू लाइसेंसेस फॉर सच ड्रग्स. ये लाइसेंसेस यानी ये ड्रग्स बनाने के जो लाइसेंसेस होते हैं ये भी कौन इशू करता है? ये स्टेट लेवल पर जो ड्रग कंट्रोलर है वो इसको इशू करते हैं. थर्ड लेवल इज ड्रग इंस्पेक्टर्स. Again, this is at state level only. They are from the states and yes, and from the center also. What do? They randomly draw out drugs from the market for the purpose of testing. अब मैन्युफैक्चरिंग तो हो गई है, कंप्लायंस का काम जो है वो ड्रग कंट्रोलर का था. अब ड्रग्स मैन्युफैक्चर होकर के मार्केट में चली गई. So one more level of check is introduced by these drug inspectors. What do? They take away certain samples from the market and do the testing by analysts in government labs. और फिर उसके बेसिस पे पता चलता है कि whether the compliance has been actually done effectively or no. This is how entire stuff or the system works. Copies of Indian Pharmacopoeia. What are the challenges? Indian Pharmacopoeia इसके अंदर में पब्लिश होता है जो स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं सेट बाय द आईपीसी. दीज आर वेरी एक्सपेंसिव एंड देयरफॉर कॉमन पीपल कैन नॉट एक्सेस दिस. अब ये एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट पब्लिकेशन है बाय अ ऑटोनॉमस बट गवर्नमेंट बैक्ड बॉडी. और इस इंपॉर्टेंट बॉडी का सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पब्लिकेशन है दिस publication called as Indian Pharmacopoeia, which is going to give us the details or the standards that are supposed to be followed. Now, if this particular drug, if this particular publication itself is not accessible, then how will common people come to know, or how will neutral experts come to know regarding whether compliance is being done or no? Okay. So what should we do now? What should be the solutions to overcome this problem? Solution is this: publication of Indian Pharmacopoeia must be made freely available to all. Why should it be charged? This is a very important document connected with the health of the common man. Therefore, it should not be charged or inaccessible. Manufacturers who are not able to comply, IPC के जो standards हैं, who are not able to comply with these standards, then their production must be stopped. Drug inspectors must prosecute such manufacturers who are not maintaining the standards and still their drugs are there in the market. So these are the steps that need to be taken. Then we have to remember, both for prelims and mains, Section 26A of the Drug and Cosmetic Acts of 1940. This is a very important act, guys, and this section in that act is particularly significant. Section 26A of Drug and Cosmetic Acts, what does it deal with? This particular section, government can invoke this section. It has the power using this section to prohibit the manufacture and sale of drugs in the country. So this is a very, very powerful section which can stop the companies from continuing their production. But this power is rarely invoked, is what the writer complains. Ministry of Health apparently often does not have the technical expertise for this particular purpose. The Ministry of Health, here the Health Secretary will be heading. Generally, he will be from the IS cadre, and this particular work, according to the writer, requires more specific technical grooming experience, knowledge, etc. And that is why, since that is lacking, it so happens that action is not taken. So way ahead, what do we need to do now with this? Ministry of Health should, using this particular section, section 26A, prohibit with immediate effect those drugs which are using such impurity, which are using such ingredients which is much more than the IPC mandated standard, like we saw in the case of Zantac. Okay, chaliye, let's go ahead, and now we'll see the next issue connected with Wikipedia. Okay, Wikipedia and ANI's defamation case. This issue we are seeing now. Asian News International, ANI, Asian News International, has filed a case against whom? It has filed a case against Wikimedia Foundation. Wikimedia Foundation, this is the parent body that controls Wikipedia. Parent body is Wikimedia, and the popular online encyclopedia which everybody knows is Wikipedia. So the case is against the parent body and three specific Wikipedia administrators. Three specific Wikipedia administrators. The case is before Delhi High Court. What is the case briefly? See, we are not interested per se in some individual case that has been filed. Somebody might be aggrieved. It might not be the case, whatever. We are not concerned with that. We are more concerned with what? We are more concerned with specificities about some technicalities that have emerged in this case. So we are going to be concerned more with that. What is the case about? ANI has said, I mean, this detail is relatively less important, but just for the sake of context. ANI has said that some of the statements on Wikipedia pages are defamatory. Defamatory to the news agency. क्या है वो सब चीजों में हमको जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. ANI says that Wikimedia through its administrators, कौन होते हैं हम देखेंगे अभी shortly, through its administrators. You can just, for the time being, they are volunteers who do the populating work of the encyclopedia. They don't get any money for that. They're doing it as a service. Through the administrators had participated in removing edits that sought to resolve the false and misleading content framed against it. यानी ANI के खिलाफ में जो कुछ भी गलत कंटेंट विकिपीडिया के पेज पर था, उस इंफॉर्मेशन को करेक्ट करने का जब प्रयास किया गया, at that point of time, Wikimedia through its administrators interfered and sought to reverse the condition. Yani it kept the defamatory content on that same page. A single judge bench of Delhi High Court is listening to the case, and he has ordered Wikipedia to disclose the administrator's details. This is a very crucial point. Please remember this. The discussion is going to be about a couple of aspects over here. So defamation की case, एलिगेशन ये है कि विकिपीडिया के पेज पर इस एजेंसी के खिलाफ कुछ गलत चीजें लिखी हुई थी. जब इस एजेंसी, चूंकि विकिपीडिया डेमोक्रेटिक है, एक्सेस उसका सभी को होता है, सो व्हेन दे ट्राइड टू चेंज और करेक्ट दैट, सो विकिपीडिया इंटरफियर्ड थ्रू इट्स एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स एंड स्टॉप दैट. This is a big allegation. It has some legal significance. We'll see that shortly. This brings into picture a concept called as safe harbor. Safe harbor. So what is this safe harbor? Understand this concept first. ANI allege कर रही है कि विकीमीडिया ने प्रिवेंट किया है चेंज ऑन द ANI रिलेटेड कंटेंट. ठीक है, विकीमीडिया एक्टिवली इन्वॉल्व होकर के उसको प्रिवेंट कर रहा है. ठीक है, दिस वायलेट्स ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑफ एन इंटरमीडियरी अंडर सेफ हार्बर प्रोविजन. सेफ हार्बर प्रोविजन का ये वायलेशन है. मतलब क्या? देखिए, जब बहुत सारे डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स प्रोलिफरेट होने लगे, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल फेसबुक है. फेसबुक इज अ प्लेटफॉर्म. फेसबुक पर आप व्यक्त होते हैं, यू एक्सप्रेस योरसेल्फ, यू गिव योर व्यूज, ओपिनियंस एटसेट्रा. फेसबुक मिलियंस एंड लैक्स एंड करोड्स ऑफ पीपल को ये पोस्ट को मॉनिटर नहीं कर सकता. ठीक है, इसलिए वट एवर इज पोस्टेड ऑन फेसबुक, द ओनर्स और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी primarily is of that person. If somebody has posted a hate speech, incitement to offense, abetment of suicide, whatever the crime might be, अगर ऐसा कुछ किया है तो primarily जिम्मेवारी किसकी है? It is about that person. Platform की है, but we'll come to that. Primarily, Facebook cannot be, prosecuted for that particular post. ठीक है? This provision is called as safe harbor provision, which exists world over. हमारे भारत में भी IT Act 2000 और उसके बेसिस पर बने हुए रूल्स 2021, इन दोनों के अंदर में सेफ हार्बर की प्रोविजंस को इनकॉर्पोरेट किया गया है, विच इज लाइक वेरी स्टैंडर्ड. क्या होता है सेफ हार्बर? एक बार फिर से हम समझ लेते हैं. इट्स द लीगल प्रोटेक्शन गारंटीड टू इंटरमीडियरीज. लीगल प्रोटेक्शन टू इंटरमीडियरीज फ्रॉम लायबिलिटी फॉर थर्ड पार्टी कंटेंट. किसी और पार्टी का कंटेंट है, ओके, दैट इज होस्टेड ऑन देयर प्लेटफॉर्म. Section 79 of the IT Act deals with this specific concept called as safe harbor. I hope you understood this. So what is the background of this entire issue? I hope you've understood the idea of safe harbor. देखिए, ऐसा प्रोविजन क्यों है, ये सवाल आपके जहन में आ रहा होगा. Why do we have to have safe harbor in the first place? The reason behind that is कि अगर safe harbor नहीं दिया जाएगा तो क्या होगा? कभी भी इस किस्म के डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स डेवलप नहीं हो पाएंगे, which will be harmful for whom? For the economy, for the nation, for humanity as such. Right? Social media platforms have been a wonderful boon in many ways. Problems हैं उनकी अपनी, लेकिन largely they have contributed for growth and development of humanity. जब तक किसी प्लेटफॉर्म को ये सिक्योरिटी नहीं होगी, तब तक वो अपना प्लेटफॉर्म दूसरों को कैसे ओपन कर सकता है. ठीक है, कोई कुछ भी पोस्ट कर देगा, और अगर हर चीज में फेसबुक इज गोइंग टू बी हेल्ड अकाउंटेबल, देन Such platforms will never exist. So I hope you understood this. Now background. Little bit of background we'll try to understand so that we are clear about how the case is shaping. Wikipedia is a community-driven encyclopedia, as you all know, freely available on the internet. विकिपीडिया का सारा जो मॉडल है उसकी सक्सेस का सबसे बड़ा जो राज है वो यही है that it is community driven. They don't pay people, they can't afford to pay. Okay, it is freely available on the internet, and that is why people volunteer. If Wikipedia starts to charge, then why will I contribute to Wikipedia for free? If you are earning money, then I should get something. So it is financially impossible to work that model. इसलिए Wikipedia डेमोक्रेटिक है, फ्रीली अवेलेबल है. इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर वॉलंटियर्स फ्रॉम अराउंड द वर्ल्ड दे पॉपुलेट एंड मेंटेन दिस वेबसाइट, दिस एनसाइक्लोपीडिया. दे पॉपुलेट एंड व्हाट दे मेंटेन इट. इट हैज बिकम रिलायबल और इट हैज अ रेपुटेशन ऑफ बीइंग रिलायबल. व्हाई? बिकॉज उसके जो एडिटर्स हैं दे आर ऑल फील्ड एक्सपर्ट्स, रिस्पेक्टिव फील्ड एक्सपर्ट्स. Any page of Wikipedia that you go to see, for example, if you're reading about Louis XIV or Napoleon Bonaparte, so the people who have contributed over there are largely people who have done serious and thorough work in that area. So field experts. Plus, it also allows anyone to communicate their knowledge freely as long as they are upholding the guidelines. So field experts के साथ साथ में ये नहीं है कि बस कोई एक्सपर्ट है तो ही वो कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकता है. अगर आप रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं है एज एन एक्सपर्ट बट देन यू हैव नॉलेज, यू कैन कंट्रीब्यूट ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर सब्जेक्ट, देन दैट प्लेटफॉर्म इज ओपन टू यू ऑल्सो. गॉट दिस आइडिया? दिस इज हाउ विकिपीडिया वर्क्स. देन व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ द पेरेंट कंपनी? पेरेंट कंपनी क्या करता है फिर? व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ विकिमीडिया फाउंडेशन? दिस इज द क्रूशियल पॉइंट. It's a non-profit based in USA, which only provides what? Technical infrastructure. Only technical infrastructure is provided by the mother company and some guidance, of course, as to how to run the Wikipedia platform. It does not determine or control the content. Content पर मदर कंपनी का एज सच रोल नहीं है, ये हमको याद रखना होगा. ओनली इंश्योर्स दैट एडिटर्स फेस नो टेक्निकल इश्यूज व्हाइल क्रिएटिंग न्यू पेजेस. इट ओनली ट्राइज टू एंश्योर दैट द एंटायर idea is executed very smoothly. I hope you got this. So what have we understood thus far? It's a free encyclopedia, democratically accessible. Experts are there to contribute. Anybody who has interest and knowledge can also participate. The mother company does not interfere in content. It only facilitates the editors. Okay? But then, how does all of this actually work in practice? कैसे काम करता है ये? इसके लिए हमको समझना पड़ेगा विकिपीडिया के कंटेंट गाइडलाइंस को. जब तक हम ये कंटेंट गाइडलाइंस को अच्छे से नहीं समझेंगे, we'll not be able to understand this issue fully. Now, editors, people who are contributing them, they must follow community developed guidelines, ensuring all statements on the page, Wikipedia page, are reliable, are backed by reliable and verifiable sources. यानी फॉर एग्जाम्पल बाजीराव द फर्स्ट का जो पेज है, उस पेज पर जो कुछ भी इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल है वो सारी ही इंफॉर्मेशन डायरेक्टली, इजीली, रिलायबल, वेरिफाइबल सोर्सेस से ही होनी चाहिए. मीन्स व्हाट? यू कैनॉट पुट योर व्यू ऑन दैट पेज. इट हैज टू बी समथिंग दैट हैज बीन पब्लिश्ड बिफोर. अगर वो पहले पब्लिश नहीं है वो इंफॉर्मेशन, तो आप उसको विकिपीडिया पर नहीं पोस्ट कर सकते हैं, आप पॉपुलेट नहीं कर सकते उस इंफॉर्मेशन. मान लीजिए कोई ऐसी नई रिसर्च चल रही है ऑन नेपोलियन, जो रिसर्च अभी तक किसी हिस्टोरिकल जर्नल में पब्लिश, पीयर रिव्यूड नहीं हुई है. इंफॉर्मेशन माइट बी राइट बट इट इज नॉट पब्लिश्ड. सो सच इंफॉर्मेशन कैनॉट कम ऑन Wikipedia. ओनली इंफॉर्मेशन दैट इज रिलायबल वेरीफाइबल सोर्सेज से आई हुई है वही आ सकती है। ओरिजिनल रिसर्च, आपने नया कुछ ढूंढ कर निकाला है, दैट इज नॉट अलाउड एज सच। अनपब्लिश जो भी आइडियाज होती हैं, पब्लिश नहीं हुई है, वैसी आइडियाज वहां से हटा दी जाती है। आई होप यू गॉट दिस, आई होप यू अंडरस्टूड द कंसेप्ट। नाउ कम्स द कंटेंशियस पार्ट ऑफ इट, द कंसेप्ट और आइडिया ऑफ पेज प्रोटेक्शन। अब आपको ये चीज थोड़ी सी ध्यान में आ ही जा चुकी होगी that there are many issues, not just in India but across the world on many different things. There is no one single truth. Okay, there are multiple views, there are different controversies associated with something, और बहुत दफा controversies जो है ये polarizing होती हैं, right? They create a divide between people. So how do we deal with that? So there is some concept called as page protection that Wikipedia has. वो issues जिनको लेकर के बड़ी कंट्रोवर्सीज है, दैट कॉल्ड एज कंट्रोवर्शियल पेजेस, इनको प्रोटेक्टेड का स्टेटस दिया जा सकता है टू प्रिवेंट मिसयूज और वैंडलिज्म। डेमोक्रेटिक प्लेटफॉर्म है, एनीबडी कैन कम इन, पीपल विल वैंडलाइज सच पेज, यानी वहां की इंफॉर्मेशन को तोड़ मरोड़ सकते हैं। Whenever there is a threat of this happening, जब भी ऐसा डर होता है तो एक मैकेनिज्म है कॉल्ड एज पेज प्रोटेक्शन। ऐसे पेज पर कोई भी विकिपीडिया कम्युनिटी का मेंबर उस पेज के स्टेटस को प्रोटेक्टेड स्टेटस की मांग कर सकता है, प्रोटेक्टेड स्टेटस की मांग कर सकता है। एडिटर्स जो होते हैं, जो अबव हैं कॉमन मेंबर्स के, वो उसको एक्सटेंडेड कंफर्म प्रोटेक्शन या फुल प्रोटेक्शन भी दे सकते हैं। सो फर्स्ट स्टेटस इज जस्ट प्रोटेक्टेड, and then we have further extended confirmed और full protection। बहुत ज्यादा जार्गन में ना जाते हुए, extended confirmed protection क्या है? Restricts editing to only editors whose accounts have certain badges। यानी extended confirmed protection अगर मिल जाता है तो वो पेज एडिट तो होगा, लेकिन कोई भी नॉर्मल मेंबर उसको एडिट नहीं कर सकता है। उसको एडिट करने के लिए आपके पास में स्पेसिफिक रिकग्निशन होना चाहिए, जिसको टेक्निकली विकिपीडिया में एक्सटेंडेड कंफर्म्ड यूजर बैच कहा जाता है। पीपल विद सच रिकग्निशन ओनली कैन एडिट दैट पेज। नेक्स्ट इज फुल प्रोटेक्शन। हियर ओनली एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स कैन मेक चेंजेस इफ दैट पेज इज फुल्ली प्रोटेक्टेड। तो बात समझ में आई आपको विकिपीडिया कैसे काम करता है? कंटेंशियस पेजेस होंगे, कंट्रोवर्शियल पेजेस होंगे, तो उसमें प्रोटेक्शन है, एक्सटेंडेड फुल प्रोटेक्शन है, या तीसरा एक्सटेंडेड कंफर्म प्रोटेक्शन है या फुल प्रोटेक्शन है। जितना ज्यादा हायर लेवल ऑफ प्रोटेक्शन, उतना ज्यादा एक्सक्लूसिविटी रहेगी फॉर एडिटिंग दोस पेजेस। दिस इज द होल आइडिया रिगार्डिंग फंक्शनिंग ऑफ विकिपीडिया। नाउ दिस बेग्स द क्वेश्चन, अभी तो सर आपने कहा था कि विकिपीडिया की मदर कंपनी कोई इंटरफियरेंस नहीं करती है इन कंटेंट ऑफ द पेज, then why is it that you have administrators here? So you have to remember guys that administrators are not officials of the company. They are actually chosen by the community, not Wikipedia. ये बेसिकली एडिटर्स होते हैं जिनके पास बहुत पुराने अकाउंट्स हैं विकिपीडिया पर, उनका पार्टिसिपेशन बहुत पुराना है, दे हैव इनफ एडिट्स, यानी इन्होंने बहुत काम किया है विकिपीडिया के ऊपर में, वो अप्लाई कर सकते हैं टू बिकम एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स, और फिर कम्युनिटी इनको इलेक्ट करती है, कम्युनिटी देन इलेक्ट्स। सो इट इज नॉट दैट the mother company Wikipedia decides who these people will be. It is decided by the community based on some very clear criteria. विकीमीडिया इस इलेक्शन प्रोसेस के अंदर में भी कोई इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं करता, ये प्योरली एक कम्युनिटी ड्रिवन प्रोसेस के तौर पर में ये काम करता है। सो यहां पर मैं केस की डिटेल्स इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, लेकिन जस्ट बता देता हूं, चूंकि विकीपीडिया के पेज पर एलिजिबली कुछ डिफेमेटरी था, जिसको एएनआई ने करेक्ट करना चाहा, और करेक्ट करते हुए उस पेज को जो है वो प्रोटेक्शन का स्टेटस दिया गया। जब प्रोटेक्शन का स्टेटस दिया गया तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स ने जो है वो चेंज करने से रोका, जो चेंज किया गया था उसको फिर से ओरिजिनल स्टेटस पे रिवर्ट किया। अब इसको लेकर के एएनआई ने जो है वो क्वेश्चन उठाया है कि व्हाई शुड विकिपीडिया हैव सेफ हार्बर स्टेटस, क्योंकि विकिपीडिया थ्रू द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स हैज इन्फ्लुएंस्ड दिस प्रोसेस। सेफ हार्बर का एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रूल होता है कि प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो पूरी तरीके से न्यूट्रल रहे, वो इंटरफियर ना करे। जैसे फेसबुक, आप क्या पोस्ट कर रहे हैं, फेसबुक उसके ऊपर में इंटरफियर नहीं करेगा अनलेस द सिक्योरिटी एजेंसीज आस्क देम टू, या आपने कोई हेट स्पीच डाला है उन्होंने खुद उसको रिकॉग्नाइज किया, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट स्टोरी, बट इन नॉर्मल वे दे विल नॉट इंटरफियर। सिंस हियर एलिजिबली विकिपीडिया डिड दैट, तो इसलिए ये केस जो है वो चला हुआ है। अगर ये सेफ हार्बर का स्टेटस अफेक्ट हो जाता है तो व्हाट विल हैपन? विकिपीडिया का सारा ही रेपुटेशन बना है तीन चीजों पे। उसका डेमोक्रेटिक आर्किटेक्चर, एनीबडी कैन पार्टिसिपेट इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ पॉपुलेटिंग द पेज, सपोर्ट टू एडिटर एनोनिमसली एडिटिंग आर्टिकल्स, एडिटर्स का नाम वगैरह जो है वो लीक नहीं किया जाता। So this enables them to do their work without fear of retaliation. अगर fear of retaliation होगा, मेरा नाम एक्सपोज हो जाएगा, मुझे लीगल कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फेस करनी पड़ सकती है, सोशल प्रेशर झेलना पड़ सकता है, बॉयकॉट मुझे वो करना पड़ेगा। सो ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स नेचुरली will dissuade people from actually working as editors. ठीक है? Then comes enforcing policy of desisting from generating first-hand knowledge. No first-hand knowledge is allowed on Wikipedia. Everything that is there on Wikipedia is already something that is published. It can be verified, checked easily. References देने पड़ते हैं, हमको बताना पड़ता है, तभी विकिपीडिया पर एंट्री हो सकती है। All of this makes Wikipedia popular and reliable. लेकिन अगर विकिपीडिया को अब मजबूरन एडिटर्स का डिस्क्लोजर देना पड़ा, then this reputation will sink. That secrecy about editors will go, and because of that, what will happen? Reputation will be hampered, and in future, editors will not have that same confidence to work for Wikipedia. Naturally, this will be a grave loss for the idea of that, public encyclopedia, and it in a way can really undermine the reliability and popularity of that medium. So I hope you understood this, guys. Now let us take the next issue. Since I'm having a very sore throat, please excuse me, I'll take a quick sip before I go ahead. Why India's 6 GHz spectrum dilemma is affecting PS5, PlayStation 5 Pro console. Anyways, this is not important. We are more concerned with GHz spectrum. That is what is more important for us. भारत और पूरे दुनिया में जनरली स्पीकिंग वाईफाई जो है ये 2 की बैंड्स के अंदर में इस्तेमाल किया जाता है। कौन से 2 बैंड्स है ये? अगर आपके घर में राउटर है, हर एक के घर में है ही वैसे, लॉट ऑफ पीपल यूज मोबाइल, बट देन इफ यू आर यूजिंग होम बेस्ड प्लान, तो आपका जो इंस्टॉल करने के लिए बंदा आया होगा, ही मस्ट हैव टोल्ड यू कि सर इसके अंदर में आपको 2 वाईफाई मिलेंगे, एक होगा 2G और एक होगा 5G. Right? The poor fellow does not know that 2G and 5G are not connected with Wi-Fi. It is 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz spectrum which is used for Wi-Fi. ये 2 bands हैं frequency के which are used for Wi-Fi, not just in India but the whole world. 2.4 GHz, इसका एडवांटेज क्या होता है? इसका एडवांटेज है लिमिटेड डेटा बैंडविड्थ बट लार्जर एरिया। यानी इस इंटरनेट या इस वाईफाई पर यू विल नॉट गेट द बेस्ट ऑफ स्पीड, बट इट विल कवर द एंटायर हाउस में भी। ओके, सो इट्स कवरेज इज मोर, whereas in case of 5 GHz it will be much more faster but covers a much smaller distance as such. डिस्टेंस जो वो कवर करेगा वो बहुत छोटा होगा। भारत में अराउंड 2002 के आसपास में इन दोनों को जो है वो सेपरेटली अलाउ किया गया था फॉर द सेक ऑफ वाईफाई। ओके, अब वाईफाई की जो टेक्नोलॉजी है वो वाईफाई 6 आते आते 2020 में लार्जली उसके अंदर में कोई बहुत बड़ा बदलाव नहीं आया। बड़ा बदलाव कब आया? 2021 में। 2021 में वाईफाई 6E ये टेक्नोलॉजी जो है वो इवॉल्व होकर के आई, वाईफाई 6E। और वाईफाई 6E जब आया तो दुनिया भर की कंट्रीज जो है वो डिवाइड हो गई वेदर दे शुड अलाउ 6GHz frequency for Wi-Fi 6E or no. क्यों? Because already 6GHz was being used by countries for some other purposes. If you want Wi-Fi 6E technology, then you will have to release 6GHz frequency for that purpose. And this led to a divide. Now let us talk about the 6GHz spectrum. इसकी क्या खासियत है? 6GHz spectrum is a frequency band between 5.925 MHz and 7.125 MHz. इनके बीच का जो frequency band है, that is 6GHz spectrum. It is used for Wi-Fi 6E technology. Used for what? Wi-Fi 6E technology. Why is Wi-Fi 6E technology important? Because it tremendously enhances the speed of your internet. You can get speeds up to 9.6 Gbps. 9.6 Gbps की स्पीड आपको इस टेक्नोलॉजी के अंदर में मिल सकती है, right? But then for that you have to have that frequency available for Wi-Fi. USA, UK, जापान इन सभी ने क्या किया है? They have used 6GHz for Wi-Fi related purposes. India and China have not done so. भारत क्यों नहीं कर रहा है? Because India has been using 6GHz for satellite based communication and many other countries are also doing the same. क्योंकि ये एक्सक्लूसिवली सैटेलाइट्स के लिए यूज किया जा रहा था, इस वजह से भारत सरकार इमीडिएटली इसको रिलीज करने के लिए तैयार नहीं थी फॉर ऑब्वियस रीजंस। बट एक्सपर्ट्स ये कहते हैं कि रिलीजिंग दिस फॉर वाईफाई विल नॉट हैव एनी रिस्क ऑफ इंटरफियरेंस विद सैटेलाइट एज सच। ऐसी कोई इसके अंदर में दिक्कत वाली बात है नहीं। वी कैन कंटिन्यू टू यूज इट फॉर सैटेलाइट्स एंड स्टिल allow it for Wi-Fi. Now, after the evolution of technology, after the you can say increasing demand for different data and calling services, there is now a clear-cut demand in India and other countries for this particular frequency. Now, naturally, since a lot of other countries in the world are doing it, India and other countries like China are also facing this dilemma. On one side, we have telecom operators in India who wanted for telephone or telecommunication related purpose, this 6GHz. अगर ये इनको मिल जाता है तो 5G, 6G networks ये आसानी से चल पड़ेंगे भारत में. And then second dilemma है ना, दो sides हैं इसमें. The other side is telecom companies. Sorry, technology companies. Tech companies like Google and Meta, they wanted for Wi-Fi use much like what USA has done. भारत इसके अंदर में एक बीच का रास्ता भी निकाल सकता है. We are the land of Buddha. We are the land of Madhyam Marg. So we can split this up also. Half, one each for telecom and Wi-Fi. ये भी किया जा सकता है. ठीक है. भारत में अभी फिलहाल में टेलीकॉम सेक्टर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है फ्रीक्वेंसी, इसलिए जितने भी बड़े मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं वो क्या करते हैं, वो अपने हैंडसेट्स को इसी तरीके से बनाते हैं दैट दिस पर्टिकुलर स्पेक्ट्रम विल नॉट बी यूज्ड. इंडिया ऑलरेडी अवॉइड्स यूजिंग 6GHz. in India they are already avoiding usage of 6GHz frequency for their purposes. अब इसके बाद नेक्स्ट जो एवोल्यूशन आने वाला है 6E के बाद में, वो है वाईफाई 7. ये नेक्स्ट जनरेशन है वाईफाई का, और इस जनरेशन में 6GHz फ्रीक्वेंसी की जरूरत नहीं है. वाईफाई की टेक्नोलॉजी जैसे इवॉल्व होती है दोस्तों, वैसे किसी पॉइंट पर आकर के they need different frequency, true, but not always. टेक्नोलॉजी वाईफाई की इस तरीके से इवॉल्व हो रही है कि एग्जिस्टिंग फ्रीक्वेंसी में ही ज्यादा एफिशिएंसी लाने का प्रयास किया जाता है. वाईफाई 7 जब आएगा तो वाईफाई 7 इतना एडवांस होगा कि उसको इस नई फ्रीक्वेंसी की जरूरत नहीं है. एग्जिस्टिंग फ्रीक्वेंसी, ठीक है, एग्जिस्टिंग फ्रीक्वेंसी के अंदर में भी वाईफाई 7 जो है वो बहुत अच्छी स्पीड आपको दे पाएगा. ठीक है, सो दैट इज व्हाई देयर इज दिस क्वेश्चन वेदर इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस वी शुड डू समथिंग अबाउट दिस और नो. थोड़ा सा प्रीलिम्स का इसमें डायमेंशन ज्यादा है, बट इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड. 2027 तक भारत और कंट्रीज के पास टाइम है टू डिसाइड व्हाट दे वांट टू डू विद दिस 6 GHz frequency. They want to give to Wi-Fi, they want to give to telecom, or they want to continue it for satellite communication only. 2027 तक अगर ऐसे भी Wi-Fi 7 आ जाता है तो फिर the question itself will become irrelevant. So I hope you understood this, guys. Let us now take the next topic, which is Census 2025 as a comprehensive citizen registry. From the Hindu, this article we are trying to cover. Background क्या है इसका? Background is 2025 का जो हमारा सेंसस है, it includes an exercise to update the National Population Register or NPR. NPR. इस सेंसस के अंदर में NPR जो है वो अपडेट किया जाएगा, और ये NPR का अपडेट करना ये फर्स्ट स्टेप है फॉर establishment of National Register of Indian Citizens, NRIC. NPR, National Population Register. See the difference in the nomenclature itself. National Population Register, Census 2025 के साथ में, और वो बनेगा बेस फॉर व्हाट? NRIC, National Register for Indian citizens. Remember this term, Indian citizens. Now, what is the difference between NRIC and NPR? NRIC is a register aimed at establishing verified list of Indian citizens. क्या बन रहा है यहां पर में? Verified list बन रही है किस चीज की? Indian citizens की. दूसरा है NPR, National Population Register. This is the first step to update or create or establish the NRIC. ठीक है, NPR में डेमोग्राफिक और बायोमेट्रिक डेटा कलेक्ट किया जाएगा सभी का, और फिर ये हेल्प करेगा NRIC एस्टैब्लिश करने में, उसको बनाने में. अब ये सारी चीजें करने की जरूरत क्यों है? दिस इज क्लियरली मैंडेटेड अंडर सिटीजनशिप एक्ट ऑफ 1955. सिटीजनशिप एक्ट कहता है that we need a comprehensive database of all citizens. Comprehensive database. 1999 में जब कारगिल वॉर हुआ था तो उस वक्त में सुब्रमण्यम कमेटी एस्टैब्लिश की गई थी, और सुब्रमण्यम कमेटी ने भी इस चीज को रेकमेंड किया था, और उसके आधार पर सेक्शन 14A, सुब्रमण्यम कमेटी recommendations led to Section 14A being introduced in our Citizenship Act. This makes it to have this makes it mandatory to have registration of citizens and the issuance of identity cards to them. Citizens का एक registry बनेगा अलग से, और हर bona fide citizen को इस ताल्लुक से एक आई कार्ड जो है वो दिया जाएगा. Now, how will this help the country? First obvious thing is national security. This will help to ensure that no, foreign agents are able to somehow get access to Indian citizenship. It will help in identity verification. This will reduce fraud and duplication in the country. There are a lot of ghost beneficiaries that are used to swindle away government's benefits and funds. So we'll be able to stop that. It will help us to target the programs more effectively. When we are able to target government schemes and programs more effectively, it will naturally lead to what? It will naturally lead to more savings for the country. The resources that we have will be used more effectively. How is this going to be done? There are multiple steps. First step is house listing. This will happen with 2025 का census listing of households. Then biometric data collection. ये क्यों किया जा रहा है? To eliminate duplicates and ensure data accuracy. डेटा की जो क्वालिटी है इसको इंप्रूव करने के लिए वी आर गोइंग टू एंश्योर दैट बायोमेट्रिक्स आर ऑल्सो प्रोसेस्ड. ठीक है. आफ्टर दैट कम्स प्रोसेसिंग क्लेम्स एंड ऑब्जेक्शंस. Some people will find that their names are missing or their information is wrong. तो फिर claims और objections handle किए जाएंगे. Then will come citizenship status verification. तो सारों का details आ गया. फिर अब whether you are citizen or no, that will have to be verified. Once that verification is done, then after that, identity cards will be issued to those people whose citizenship has been verified. I hope you understood this, guys, how this is going to work. Now, this begs the question as to why do we need an NRIC when we already have Aadhaar in, sort of in its place. How is Aadhaar different? Aadhaar is a 12-digit unique identity number issued to residents. Please understand this. Issued to residents of India. Primarily, it is for identity verification and accessing services. Further, it is inclusive of residents regardless of citizenship. Regardless of citizenship. But NRIC will be different. It is a citizenship verification system. Exclusively for Indian citizens only. It will require a proof of citizenship. What will it require? It will require a proof of citizenship. And in that sense, it is complementary to Aadhaar, but also having its own unique and distinct role. Unique and distinct role. So this is how Aadhaar is different from NRIC. ऐसा ही प्रयास भारत में असम के राज्य में किया गया है. I'm sure all of you will be largely aware of it at least. National Register of Citizens. This big massive exercise was conducted in the state of Assam in 2019. असम के अंदर में एक बड़ा प्रॉब्लम रहा है regarding illegal immigration, especially coming in from Bangladesh. This was a very politically charged issue also. The Assam Accord that was signed between the Rajiv Gandhi government and the civil society that was leading that was leading on the issues of illegal migration. 1984 में Assam Accords जो है वो साइन हुए और इस Assam Accord के अंदर में ये प्रॉमिस किया गया था that state will take active steps to identify illegal immigrants and also then deport them back. अब किया कैसे जाए इसके लिए कुछ प्रयास हुए but none of them was nothing moved really forward. And time and again Assam के अंदर में there used to be this demand that we need to implement this particular condition that was accepted in Assam Accord. Finally, Supreme Court ordered a court-monitored process, and accordingly, NRC was done in Assam, aimed basically what? Identifying illegal migrations. Very sorry. So we were discussing Assam's experience with NRC. So NRC in Assam was aimed at identifying illegal immigrations, especially from Bangladesh. But there were certain unique challenges which it had to face. Since there was a specific cutoff date, somewhere around 1971, if I remember correctly, there was a specific cutoff date. There had to be a lot of emphasis on documentation related expectations. This documentation related expectations or requirement led to inaccuracy and also exclusion of many residents, especially in rural areas where people did not have access to documents. So for this reason, the Assam exercise, people had to go through a lot of difficulties in that process. Such a thing should not happen with NRIC, is what the writer tries to caution. Unlike national NRIC, Assam's NRC followed Assam Accord, imposing special conditions. Concerns and challenges for National Register of Indian Citizens. What will be the challenges or problems that people will face during the course of this register being built up? First in that is data privacy. Data privacy, risk of misuse of demographic and biometric data. We have seen that data is the oil for this age. It's a very important resource. We just spoke about digital arrests. Data is a very sensitive thing. Data being leaked or data being misused can create a lot of sufferings for people in our times. So for that reason, we need to have strong data protection measures. Right now, we don't have a national law to deal with data protection. Europe has come up with GDPR. We are in the process, but we are not yet there. Some other countries also have come up with their own models. So in the absence of a national law, this concern has to be factored in. Exclusion fears. Communities with limited documentation may face difficulties in establishing or proving their citizenship. Poor communities, backward communities, vulnerable communities who have not been very particular or meticulous about their documentation, such people are naturally going to face exclusion related errors, and it can be really very painful. There is nothing more vulnerable than a stateless citizen in this world of ours. So he or she does not have any kind of protection. So it's a very dreadful situation for anybody. So we'll have to be very cautious about exclusion fears. Logistical and administrative challenges. Doing this kind of an exercise for one state of Assam. Assam is also a big state, but then still, just imagine doing it for the entire country. Assam, it was a very big exercise. A lot of time, energy, effort went into doing that particular exercise. Now, this same thing being done across the country will not be an easy task. So for this, we citizens also need to be, a little more particular. Citizens must stay informed, vigilant, and engaged with the administration. Transparency and fairness depend on active citizen involvement. So we need to be actively involved with this process. Verifying records, providing accurate information, and voicing concerns wherever required. This is what will be the role of citizens in this journey. Okay? So I hope, guys, you were able to understand this particular issue. Now, after this, we are going to take the next article, which is Indians need to share contraceptive responsibility. Indians need to share contraceptive responsibility. This is an article from the Hindu. Why was this article published? The reason behind that is third Friday of November every year is observed as what? It is observed as vasectomy day. Vasectomy day. What is vasectomy? It is medical sterilization of men to prevent him from having children. Basically a contraceptive measure for family planning. So in this context, we had this article. Let us see now the background. India was the first country in the world to implement a national program for family planning. 1952, we had started out with this, very visionary of the Indian leadership to have done something so early. The goal of this initially was improving maternal and child health, and eventually it moved to stabilizing of population. In the decade of 50s, 60s, we saw that population was rising. There was some affluence that was coming in. Medical and health sector was improving. Life expectancy was on the rise and death rate was going down. So population was exploding, and for that reason, population stabilization ये सबसे important aim बन गया हमारे family planning का. 1966-70 इस पीरियड में 80.5% ऑफ स्टेरिलाइजेशंस वर वैसेक्टोमीज। ये सारा वो पीरियड है जहां पर में इस चीज को लेकर के काफी ज्यादा आवाज जो है वो लगाई जाती थी फॉर फैमिली प्लानिंग, birth control, so on and so forth. At that stage, awareness was low, access to contraceptives was limited, and for that reason, male vasectomy was the dominant mode. लेकिन अगर आप recent decades में देखेंगे तो there has been a constant decline. कितना decline? As much as 0.3% in National Family Health Survey 4 and 5 is coming from vasectomy. So as low as 0.3%. This when the national health policy targets that 30% has to be from vasectomy. So long story short, what we are trying to say over here is that the male vasectomy levels have gone down substantially and we need to do something about it. So what do? We have to first, in a way, find out why is this the case? Why basically, men are not doing vasectomy and the burden is falling on women alone. Just a second. So the challenges in encouraging male vasectomy, they are multifold. Women believe that men should not be burdened as they are the breadwinners. Men are already earning the bread for the family, and then making them go through this pain is unfair, and we should be bearing it, is the general, social, you can say, mindset of our people. Furthermore, fear of loss of wage. If a man goes for vasectomy, especially if it's a scalpel based vasectomy, then in that case there will be some time that he will lose in that process, so there will be loss of wage. It's a misconception, but that's like it exists. Illiteracy, people are not aware of it. Male ego, why should I do it? My wife, if at all we need to plan a family, then the wife should do it. Myths about libido. Okay, libido is your sexual drive. After vasectomy, the libido will be down. This is a myth that people have. And family opposition. Generally, parents in the family do not want the son to go for vasectomy. They would rather prefer the daughter-in-law going for it. So there's a social or family angle to it also. Along with it, the state has also failed. Skilled providers are not available, especially in rural areas. बहुत सारे कम्युनिटी हेल्थ वर्कर्स ये खुद भी नहीं जानते हैं कि नो स्कैल्पेल वैसेक्टोमी, यानी जहां पर में इन्वेजिव टाइप का प्रोसीजर करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है, नो स्कैल्पेल वैसेक्टोमी. ठीक है, this kind of process exists that is not known by many in the health community also, community health workers also. So this needs to change. How do we change that? Some solutions that the writer gives us. What are the solutions that we need to implement? सबसे पहला, we need to sensitize our youth starting from school age itself. School level पर ही we need to sensitize them. Social and behavioral change के लिए we need to debunk myths and destigmatize vasectomies. Myths जो इसको लेकर के हैं, जो हमने देखा, ईगो है, लिबिडो रिलेटेड myths हैं, फैमिली या सोशल बिहेवियरल नॉर्म्स हैं, या ऐसी बहुत सारी और चीजें हैं. इन myths को debunk करना, destigmatize करना, ये जरूरी है. We need to increase awareness of cash incentives. Already government is giving this. So if the male or the family feels that there will be a loss of wage, it will not be, because there is cash incentive that is available. You can always avail that cash incentive. It offer greater cash incentives for vasectomy. State must take this initiative and offer greater incentive than what is already being given. International case studies must be studied. South Korea, Bhutan, these are great success stories where a high percentage of birth control has been done through male vasectomies. So how these countries have been able to do it, we need to see and learn from them. क्या है इन कंट्रीज में खास? प्रोग्रेसिव सोशल नॉर्म्स, समाज के अंदर में जो धारणाएं हैं वो ज्यादा बेहतर है. सोशल एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी ये बहुत ज्यादा है. भारत में if a man goes for this, he will be looked down upon as less of a man, right? Quality services are available and accessible. Government run camps are held, so the cost is low. All of these things have made these countries a success. We need to take certain steps at government level also. National health system must align with policy objective. क्या है objective हमारा? 30% sterilization has to come from vasectomies. अभी कितना है? 0.3. Okay, there's no point in having just a goal. Our entire health system must align with this objective. Only then we'll be able to do it. Invest in training health professionals to perform vasectomies. Invest in healthcare personnel. Promote non-scalpel vasectomies through technical advancement. The more we go towards advanced technology, where there will be less and less invasive procedure, the more men will be encouraged to go for it. So we need to encourage development of technology in this particular direction also. So this was the article for vasectomies, since the vasectomy day had fallen in the previous week. Now let's take the next article. From a republic to a republic of unequals. Okay, so this is a article once again in context of what? The Constitution Day, November 26, 75 years of Constitution completed. And in that context, this is a reflective article as to how things stand today vis-a-vis the vision of our founding fathers. Some good data points are included, which can come in handy in many different types of answers and essays. So that's why we are discussing the content of this article. Okay. Constitution makers had adopted a liberal framework. हमारा जो संविधान है दोस्तों, इसके अंदर लिबर्टी, ये जो वैल्यू है, इसको बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस हमारे फाउंडिंग फादर्स ने दिया था. लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम लिबर्टी का मतलब क्या होता है? देखिए, आइडिया ऑफ लिबरलिज्म, इट कम्स फ्रॉम 18-19 सेंचुरी यूरोप. लिबरलिज्म में क्या होता है? इंडिविजुअल की चॉइस को ज्यादा महत्व दिया जाता है. हर इंडिविजुअल वाइज इनफ है इस चीज को समझने के लिए कि व्हाट इज गुड और राइट फॉर हिम. द स्टेट शुड नॉट बिकम पैटर्नलिस्टिक. स्टेट को ये नहीं बोलना चाहिए कि वी अंडरस्टैंड बेटर एंड वी विल टेल यू हाउ यू शुड लिव योर लाइफ. इंस्टेड ओनस मस्ट बी ऑन द इंडिविजुअल. कैपिटलिज्म लिबरलिज्म में से ही आया है. बेसिकली कैपिटलिज्म इसी आइडिया को इकोनॉमी के फील्ड में इंप्लीमेंट करता है. राइट. स्टेट शुड नॉट टेल व्हाट टू प्रोड्यूस, व्हाट टू सेल, हाउ मच टू सेल. ये सब स्टेट का काम नहीं है. ये इंडिविजुअल देखेगा, मार्केट देखेगा. सो कैपिटलिज्म बेसिकली इज एक्सटेंशन ऑफ लिबरलिज्म ओनली. सो हमारे यहाँ जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, हमारे जो फाउंडिंग फादर्स हैं, दे हैव गिवन ग्रेट एम्फोसिस ऑन लिबरल थॉट. हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को लिबरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन भी इसीलिए कहा जाता है. बट एट द सेम टाइम द राइटर सेज they still wanted the state to play a very important role. क्यों important role? क्योंकि भारत एक ऐसा देश है जहां पर में इनइक्वालिटी है. सोशल स्ट्रक्चर्स जो है हमारे यहां पर में इगैलिटेरियन नहीं है. इसलिए क्या करना पड़ेगा? We will have to make the state play an important role. तो यूनिक कंडीशन है भारत में. On one side we understand the value and importance of liberty. Liberalism accepted है, but at the same time we also want the state to play a crucial role so that these poor social indicators and the consequent inequality is also redressed. तो दोनों चीजें हमारे यहां पर में. लिबरलिज्म के चलते क्या मिला? लिबरलिज्म के चलते we have freedom for citizens to carry out activities without state interference. तो लिबर्टी आपको ये चीज में दे दी गई है. इंडिविजुअल का जो फुल पोटेंशियल है वो तभी रियलाइज होगा जब एक मुक्त खुले एक्सक्यूज वन सेकेंड जब एक फ्री एनवायरनमेंट में वो अपने आप को पूरी तरीके से डेवलप कर पाएगा, तभी ये हो पाएगा. स्टेट का इंटरफेरेंस नहीं होना चाहिए. तो ये है लिबर्टी विच इज अ कोर वैल्यू. तो ये भी है हमारे यहां संविधान में. बट एट द सेम टाइम ऐसा नहीं है कि हमने बस लिबर्टी को ही तरजीह दे रखी है और बाकी चीजों को निग्लेक्ट किया है. स्टेट का जो रोल है, दिस ऑल्सो हैज बीन अंडरस्टूड. स्टेट का रोल किस तरीके से, सोशियो इकोनॉमिक जो इनइक्वालिटीज हैं ये और ज्यादा वर्स हो जाएगी बिकॉज ऑफ लिबर्टी. देखिए ऑलरेडी समाज में इनइक्वालिटी है, ठीक है, आप सभी को पूरा फ्रीडम दे रहे हैं हम, कोई हर्ज नहीं, लेकिन जब पूरा फ्रीडम दे रहे हैं और समाज में इनइक्वालिटी है तो क्या होगा, जो अगले हैं वो और ज्यादा डेवलप होंगे, दे विल हैव अ मच बेटर लाइफ, मच बेटर अपॉर्चुनिटीज एज कंपेयर्ड टू दोज हु आर बिलो. So for this reason, we will have to do what? We will have to bring about equality, and therefore state's role is very crucial in this. State must give positive role to intervene for creating conditions for everyone to participate equally in this process, democratic process. और इसी के चलते हमारे यहां पर में affirmative action और reservation जैसे प्रोविजंस को इंप्लीमेंट किया गया है. राइट, सो आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड द कंटेक्स्ट. ऑन वन साइड आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज लिबरल एंड ऑन द अदर साइड वी स्टिल हैव स्टेट प्लेइंग एन एक्टिव रोल. और ये जो एक्टिव रोल है ये इसलिए किया जाता है ताकि वो स्टेट प्रॉपर कंडीशंस क्रिएट कर सके जिसमें अनइक्वल जो पॉपुलेशन है उसको भी बराबरी का मौका मिल सके. और उसी का नतीजा है कि वी हैव अफर्मेटिव एक्शन एंड रिजर्वेशन. एम हियर इज टू ट्रीट द अनइक्वल्स अनइक्वली टू अचीव इक्वालिटी. ट्रीट द अनइक्वल्स अनइक्वली टू अचीव इक्वालिटी. I want you to note down this quote. Okay, write it down in your notes somewhere. Make a separate, Google sheet if you like. Treat the unequals. This is in context of our affirmative action. Treat the unequals unequally to achieve equality. I hope you got this. Okay. So, in this context, our idea, Indian Constitution का जो idea है, that is very closer to John Rawls' egalitarian liberalism. Egalitarian liberalism. मतलब क्या है इस egalitarian liberalism का? It talks about equal basic liberties. यानी हर व्यक्ति को जो है वो सेम लेवल की बेसिक फ्रीडम्स जो है वो मिलेगी. देन इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज, सभी को जो है वो समान अवसर मिलेगा. And yet factoring in the differences. ठीक है, अब ये समान अवसर देते हुए जो ज्यादा पिछड़े हैं इनका भी ख्याल रखा जाएगा so that they can reach at par with those who are better off. Directive principles of state policies, they reflect these ideas. कौन से ideas? Equal basic liberty, equal opportunity, and also factoring in the differences in the people. Supreme Court also has reasserted this in many of its judgments. अब यहां पर मैं आने के बाद में राइटर हमको ये बताते हैं that 1990s में रिफॉर्म्स इंप्लीमेंट होने तक कोर्ट्स के या even subsequently for few more years, courts in a way prioritize this vision. Which vision? This John Rawls egalitarian idea, egalitarian liberalism wala principle, this was prioritized by the courts. But over the recent years or decades, when the reforms really started to gain steam and economy started to grow, after that, in a way, we have, lost that priority which we had earlier. तो ये जो पहले की हमारी आइडियोलॉजी थी अब ये वो सेम लेवल पर इंप्लीमेंट होती भी नहीं दिखती है. दिस इज व्हाट बेसिकली वी आर ट्राइंग टू से इन दिस पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन. सो इसका इंपैक्ट क्या है? इंपैक्ट इज वी कैन सी इन द राइज ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी. सो हम क्यों चल पड़े थे इस सारी जर्नी में? वी हैड स्टार्टेड आउट बिकॉज वी वांटेड टू ब्रिंग अबाउट इक्वालिटी, बट व्हाट वी आर सीइंग नाउ, वी आर सीइंग that inequality is now on the rise. The writer tells us with some evidence over here. Lucas Chancel and Thomas Piketty. Thomas Piketty is a very famous economist who has critiqued capitalism, neoliberal, context, how it has led to more accumulation of wealth, so on and so forth. So Thomas Piketty और चैंसल ये हमें क्या बताते हैं? They tell us they are from Paris School of Economics and they have done a research titled Indian Income Inequality 1922 to 2015 from British Raj to Billionaire Raj. Very interesting title over there. From British Raj to Billionaire Raj. They say top 1% of earners had a share of less than 21% of the total income in 1930. ये टॉप 1% जो अर्न कर रहे थे, यानी जो सबसे ज्यादा वेल्थ अर्न कर रहे हैं इन द होल पॉपुलेशन, टॉप 1%, इनका शेयर टोटल इनकम में कितना है? 21% है 1930 के दशक में। इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद जब स्टेट ने इंटरवेंशन शुरू किया, मतलब क्या? स्टेट ने प्रोग्रेसिव टैक्सेशन इंप्लीमेंट करना स्टार्ट कर लिया, स्टेट ने जो है वो स्पेसिफिक स्टेप्स लेना स्टार्ट कर दिया एफर्मेटिव एक्शन के, और इन सब के चलते हमको क्या देखने को मिलता है? हमको ये देखने को मिलता है दैट ड्यू टू दिस मेजर्स गैप रिड्यूस टू 6%। जो पहले 21% हुआ करता था वो 6% पे आ गए 1980s। थॉमस पिकेटी इज अ वेरी रिस्पेक्टेड फिगर गाइस, एंड ये सारा डेटा पॉइंट जो है ये आपको बहुत ज्यादा काम आ सकता है इन राइटिंग गुड आंसर्स इन एसेज। सो दिस गैप 21% से it reduced to how much? 6% in 1980s because of government's policies. Then post reforms, यानी जब हम एक ज्यादा और लिबरल फ्रेमवर्क पे चले गए, स्टेट का रोल और एक्शन को जब कम किया गया, वो ओरिजिनल जो आइडियोलॉजी थी उससे हम दूर गए अकॉर्डिंग टू द रिसर्चर्स, then what happened? It again shot up to 22%. यानी टॉप 1% कमाने वाले लोग टोटल जो इनकम है उसकी 22%, 1% जो है वो 22% रख रहे थे। ठीक है, 2024 आते आते टॉप 1% इनकम वाले लोग, इनका शेयर जो है इनकम में 22.6% हो गया और वेल्थ में 40.1% हो गया। So you can see the disproportionateness or accumulation of wealth in the hands of the top 1% in this particular research. एक और research है by the same you can say Paris School of Economics towards tax justice and wealth redistribution in India. 2024 में World Inequality Lab एक रिपोर्ट प्रेजेंट किया था titled this towards tax justice and wealth redistribution. According to this research, 90% of the billionaire wealth was held by upper caste. 90% of the billionaire wealth upper caste. Scheduled tribes represented ही नहीं है, OBCs सिर्फ 10% है, scheduled caste 2.6% है in billionaire wealth, 2.6%. Between 2014 and 22, OBC share has reduced from 20 to 10%. From 20 to 10%, it has actually gone down. Upper caste share has, in its place, increased from 80% to 90% in billionaire wealth. So what the writer is trying to show is, as we go more towards reforms and away from the idea of active role for the state, we see more concentration of wealth taking place. Upper caste are the only group which owns wealth more than its proportion of population. Everybody else, the wealth is less than the proportion of their population. So what does this tell us? Social capital. Remember this term, social capital. Financial नहीं, social capital. सोशल कैपिटल जो वो लोग जो समाज के अंदर में पद प्रतिष्ठा रखते हैं, they have something called as social capital. It is about their recognition, it is about their contacts, it is about आप रात में 12 बजे किसको फोन लगा करके हेल्प ले सकते हैं. So all of that is part of your social capital. Social capital and economic advantages are overlapping in India. This is what we can infer from this report. So please remember this data. It will come in very handy when you are trying to substantiate. बहुत दफा जब आप मेंस लिखते हैं आपके पास में डेटा फैक्ट्स फिगर्स नहीं होते हैं टू मेक योर पॉइंट मोर रोबस्ट, और फिर वहां मेंस के वक्त में टाइम नहीं होता है कि आप नई चीजों को याद करेंगे. अभी से आपको इस पर काम करते रहना है ताकि मेंस के वक्त में इट डज नॉट बिकम अ बर्डन और प्रॉब्लम फॉर यू. तो वन मोर रिपोर्ट हियर, ऑक्सफैम इंटरनेशनल इनकम इनइक्वालिटी की रिपोर्ट लाता है ऑक्सफैम. Number of billionaires from 9 in the year 2000 to 119 in 2023. We have increased the billionaires. 941 years लगेंगे हमको for a minimum wage. Contrast देखिए, minimum wage जो आज कमा रहा है उसको टॉप कॉर्पोरेट एग्जीक्यूटिव जितनी सैलरी कमाने के लिए 941 years or almost 1000 years we are going to require for that purpose. So what does this show? This once again highlights that inequality that we have post holding back of the state and implementation of more reforms. What do we need to do? Constitution का जो original vision है उसको implement करना होगा is what the writer says. Egalitarian social order by minimizing income inequality and eliminating social inequality. This should be our goal. लेकिन ये जो गोल है न्यू लिबरल आइडियोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर में ये अब थ्रेटेंड है. न्यू लिबरल आइडियोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर मींस बेसिकली टू कीप थिंग्स सिंपल द रिफॉर्म बेस्ड एजेंडा, ओपनिंग अप ऑफ द मार्केट, more and more private sector, less and less of state ka role, less and less of affirmative steps and actions. All of that is neoliberal thought process. Violating constitutional ideology, inequality levels are widening, strengthening wealth concentration among few. Social inequality overlaps with economic inequality that gives upper castes a greater advantage. Okay? So these were some of the more important articles that I wanted to present to all of you. There are some more articles that are there in the notes, but relatively they are easier to understand, more fact-based rather than analytical-based. So I would urge you to go through the notes, and most importantly, if you watched this far, then do like this video, leave a comment in the comment box. It really tells the YouTube algorithm to spread this video to others, and it will be a great motivation for me as well. So I hope to see you in next lecture. Please feel free to connect with me. I'll be sharing on my Telegram channel the ways and means through which you can connect with me. And if you have any suggestions that you want me to include, any videos that you want me, any topics that you want me to cover in videos, I'll be most happy to do that. Right now, I'll sign out over here. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next session next week. Good day to all of you.